The next module I would like to demonstrate is this module right here called the SHO. That stands for Spinal Health Orientation, and it's representative of the flip chart that we've offered since 1987. We have all of the pages of the flip chart in here, and we have many more screens and images that we've added over time. Well, notice that every time I click on one of these buttons, I get a second sub-menu. And it's designed to go pretty much in the order you might want to discuss things, but you can change that order any way you want using the Tours module, which you may learn about later in this presentation. So right now I'm going to choose Health Is, and this gives us a basic definition of health from Tabor's Cyclopedic Medical Dictionary. These arrows down here basically step us through just like flipping the pages on the flip chart. But these arrows don't have any ability to change what's going to come next. That's where you would use the Tour module, and then you would get arrows down in this area here, and those arrows would go directly to the images you want to go to when you want to go there. Many of these screens have additional functionality to them. I'm clicking on these 6 different facets of health one at a time, and it's giving us a different discussion point. For instance, here we can talk about pain is a very poor way to measure health, because by the time we have symptoms, we could have lost maybe as much as 60%, or excuse me, maybe as much as 40% function in that area. But if all we do is cover up the symptoms, that's going to continue to allow function to decline. The key is to get involved in some healthcare approach like chiropractic, which is designed to improve function in that area, rather than just treating symptoms like they are the problem. Here's the section on anatomy. So what we did, I'm going to come back up here to health definitions. We showed health is the Hippocrates quote, the Edison quote, the Einstein quote, the Pentagon of Health, the 6 facets of health, and the health ruler. We did those just by clicking the arrow. Well, now I'm here at the anatomy, Y curves area, and we can show, well, what happens if the spine didn't have curves? Here it has curves, so like a spring it absorbs shock, but without curves it can't absorb shock easily, and every step we take would be felt. Then we show how those curves develop through the proper muscular development, and then we show a few things that can interfere with proper spinal development, like the birth process, children being forced to walk before their muscles are able to support their spine, children being thrown up in the air and caught horizontally, which is really another form of whiplash, and kids being picked up by their arm. We also have the opportunity to talk about scoliosis and how it can advance over time and should be detected as early as possible to be prevented. That takes us Y curves, development of curves, baby your back, and scoliosis. Then we have a whole section on disc. I could have gotten there if I had clicked the right arrow. And that involves these 9 pictures you see here. These other pictures would only be available if you happen to own a particular spinal decompression machine, and then we can include those videos from that company as well. These images give us the ability to talk about how the disc is like some of the older style golf balls that had liquid centers that are wound around with tight rubber bands, which are the annular fibers of the disc. We also have an opportunity to talk about how the disc needs a sponge-like pumping action to pull in nutrition and expel waste products. So we show an image of some motion in the disc and then a cross-section of that. And then we talk about, well, what happens if those rubber bands or annular fibers stretch and tear? And we show a demonstration of that tearing taking place where it's putting pressure on a nerve, and we actually can click this button and show it rupturing all the way out. In addition to that, we can talk about how that type of compression creates a wedge disc and puts pressure on the nerve, and we show a side view, and we can talk about some of the ways of dealing with that. One way many people deal with that is surgically, and while that may help initially with some of the pain, that also over time causes problems above and below the site of the surgery because it restricts the range of motion where the surgery was. The other thing that we can do is nothing at all. That's the degeneration process. And when you have a wedge disc like that, every step you take is chewing on that disc. The only thing that makes sense when you have a compressed disc is to do something to actually attempt to decompress it through chiropractic care. The next step is talking about the development of the nerve system. Here we can talk about how the nerve system is so important that after fertilization we have cellular division, and after the cellular division the first thing that develops is the primitive brain and neural streak. From that, all the rest of the body develops. So the nerves are so important that they're responsible for all that coordination and development. Then we have the ability to talk about how the nerves communicate with all parts of the body. And these buttons here enable us to demonstrate, just like the overlays on our flip chart, as we build the nerve system from the inside out. And then we can talk about what nerve energy is. Nerve energy is electrical energy flowing through the wires of our body. As long as the circuitry is intact, everything functions properly. But if we have something that interferes with the circuitry, like maybe you dug a hole in the morning and didn't know you hit a wire, you could replace this light bulb all you want. That's a symptomatic approach. But instead, what you need to do is trace the pathway, determine where the problem is, and correct the problem. That's what chiropractic is all about. In this SHO module, there's literally hundreds of images and animations to help you explain what it is you want people to understand, and to create multiple different presentations using our TOR presentation editor, so you can have one presentation for a basic healthcare class, one for an advanced healthcare class, one for talking to kids in schools, and I'm going to show you a little more information on that, one for talking to people at businesses. I'll show you some information in that module, as well as any type of healthcare class you want.